with each other. The game begins. Magnus plays e4 and Pragg responds with Karo Khan. A small surprise for Magnus. As he pauses, he brings his knight out. Pawn push to d5 and now d3. Very interesting line. Pragg doesn't even think about taking the pawn, pins the knight, brings his bishop backwards. And here Magnus goes into a think. What should he do here? Because it seems like Pragg has played something which Magnus hasn't prepared deeply against. Knight c3 is a possible move here. There could also be knight d2. There can also be g4. And you can see Magnus burning his time, taking almost 30 seconds for the move, plays queen e2, which is the main line. e6 by Pragg, and now g4, bishop comes back, and Magnus can try to trap the bishop with h4, h5, which is why the queen on e2 is very well placed, protecting the pawn. He does play it h4, great move. h5 is coming in here. And Pragg now starts to think, which is not a great sign per se, because you should be very well prepared here. h4 is one of the main moves. He takes on e4, pawn takes, and now plays his pawn to h5. Magnus pushes forward and gains space. Now an important move for black is bishop d6, stopping the knight from coming here, and also the bishop to f4. Because if you play knight d7 to stop here, white can develop the bishop on this great diagonal. He does play knight d7, but Magnus doesn't even think. He doesn't bring the bishop here. He plays knight d2, and this is good for Pragg. One idea can be just to play bishop d6, knight e7, and short castle, but queen c7, not particularly a great move. Bishop b2 is the idea, to put the bishop on this long diagonal, and already it's unclear how Pragg should continue. Now, one plan that Pragg can think about is knight e7, bishop to b2, and c5, so that the knight can come to c6, and then you have some very good control over the dark squares. And perhaps this might be the best way to play in this position, because the other plan could be knight e7, bishop h7, and knight g6, trying to take advantage. But it's all about playing on the dark squares. He plays knight e5, and Magnus responds instantly, bishop b2, and now you can see Pragg is in a bit of a problematic situation with his knight. Bishop d6 comes to defend the knight in the center, and now Magnus thinks for a bit and goes long castles. The rook is beautifully placed here. Now the knight comes to e7. And Pragg is thinking about whether to long castle or short castle. He has these possibilities in his hand. But a very powerful move here is to move the knight and push the pawn forward eventually. But it's not an easy move to make, knight e1, because it's a backward move. Also, after pushing the knight, you get your knight to the d3 square, which is a phenomenal square for the white knight. Magnus is taking his time. Again, a 30-second think. I am really amazed. Finds it! Knight e1. I'm amazed at the ability of Magnus to slow down, even in a blitz game. What a move this was. And now knight e1 with the idea of f4 at the right moment. You want to time it well, because the knight could jump here. Long castles comes in. Bishop h3. Now the bishop is looking here. Also, f4, f5 can be on cards, maybe with rook f1 coming in. So, bishop is very well positioned. And now, Pragg, who has perhaps slightly more time on the clock and who was using his time pretty well, is now made to think, and this is what Magnus does to you. His moves are so strong, they make you think. And here, Pragg now is kind of at a loss what to do. He goes king b8 and king b1. Also, Magnus just safeguards everything before playing f4, because in future, if this pawn is lost, there shouldn't be a check to the king. So king b1, a very, very nice move, tucking the king away. How does Pragg create play is a big question here. It's not at all easy. None of his pieces are playing here. If his knight comes here, he can always kick it away with f3. The other knight doesn't really have any squares to go to. He plays knight c8. But now it's time to push forward. Magnus Carlsen can just go f4, f5. He goes f4, knight jumps in. Pragg is like, take a pawn. I'm happy if you take here. Queen g4, there is bishop h5, but he takes the pawn on g7. Magnus asks Pragg, where's your compensation? Because the moment you play rook g8, I have bishop f6 attacking the other rook. So there's not even time to win this pawn on f4. Rook h7 played, bishop comes here. He goes rook d7. And now, okay, e5 is something which you want to avoid because it really activates this bishop. So Pragg is banking on the fact that he will be able to win back some material on f4. He goes knight to c4. Wow, this is a fine move. Bishop takes pawn, knight jumps to d3. And you can see the knight attacks the bishop and the threat is queen takes, bishop e5 check, and you lose the bishop here. So Pragg moves his bishop to g3. The bishop is really precariously placed here and can be actually tried to trap there with rook d g1. But there are also other powerful moves like knight d e5, blocking the bishop here and getting the knight right into the heart of black's camp. But Magnus goes the other side. He attacks the rook now. Pragg chops it off, takes here, and now maybe you want to win this pawn, but the rook is entering on d7, then the b7 pawn is hanging. Too many problems here for Pragg. He goes knight d6, Magnus takes on d6, bishop d6 and chops it off, and Pragg resigns here. Magnus wins, bishop takes here, queen takes, bishop e5,